welcome to Singled Out. In this episode we discuss the science fiction wargame Infinity by Corvus Belli. We chat about what we like about the game and why we are looking forward to playing it more.
And so, with the death of Guild Ball, Singled Out moved on, turning their specialist skills to designing the Finnegan's Wake role-playing game they'd always wished they could play.
It is their signal for old Chancellor Wit to seek the shade of his retirement and for young chapel lasses to tear around and tease their partners loved for Matt Finnegan's Wake.
Oh, you're kidding me! Again? Well, I don't know how to deal with this. John, any ideas?
Who's my character again?
Well, there aren't really anything as discernible as actual characters. That would be way too mainstream.
But I thought I was Finnegan. Andrew, am I Finnegan?
Barabda Tatakam in an Kron Bron Tona Osatuna Ton Thuk cool can Tuhudol.
Oh man, this is going so badly. No. Quick, Connor, you can deal with this. You just need to roll 20 dice.
How many?
20, Connor.
20, Connor. Roll 20 dice and we're finished.
Okay, I've got this.
Oh, God.
Away alone, alas, the loved, along the river run, past even Adams, from swerve of shore to bend of bay, brings us by a commodious ficus of recirculation back to Howth Castle and environs.
Oh, thank God, I did it! That's the last line. We won. It took us 45 days straight, but we finished.
Jesus, Connor, the last line is also the first line. We're right back at the start again.
Why the hell would anyone do that?
Well, if you can't win, you can't play competitively, so you can't kill the game. And we don't want any more dead games. We're playing this forever now.
The gracehopper was always jigging a jog, hoppity on cant of his joycity.
You know, we could just play Infinity instead.
Well, that's just basically as complicated.
Ere the hour of the twattering of bards in the twitter litter between the Druida and the deep sleep sea.
This is episode 114. Please stand by.
This is episode 114 of Singled Out, the episode after the Guild Ball.
I'm Steve Cole.
Connor Rooney on the line.
John Clemens.
And today we're here to talk about, I don't know, stuff. I don't know now. I mean...
We had a whole, clearly all the effort, all my commitment to this went into the part, went into the introduction.
It's done now.
That's it, I'm done. I'm basically spent. I've got nothing.
As usually, we've peaked early.
Mic drop.
Yeah, that's all I've got. No Guild Ball's gone. I think we were going to talk very briefly about the community project, weren't we? And then talk a bit more about Infinity.
So the Guild Ball community project seems to have picked up a lot of traction. How many applicants were there for? Like 50 odd?
So we did a call for committees, so we had 75 applicants.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Man, that's a lot of people.
It was really, it was both the sort of corporate phrase would be a nice problem to have, because you're like, these people are all really good. They could all do this. So we're actually editing that down into the, we only had sort of 5 or 6 committees, so we couldn't take everyone's application. But it was great. Yeah, it seems to be going quite well. So if anyone's missed it, there is a community project that's been launched, which one member of this podcast has been involved in.
Is it me?
Yeah, it's you, Andrew.
Yay!
Love being on a committee you don't know about.
I mean, to be fair, we're consulting you about the future of Guild Ball as much as you're being consulted about, the safety of your school. So it's.
Oh no.
That hurts.
It's true.
It's true.
The future of Guild Ball is bleak because we're all going to die from COVID.
Not all of us. Not all of us. Just enough of us.
Yeah.
Herd immunity.
So moving on from that.
that was depressing.
So basically there's a community group looking at trying to do basically like the Blood Bowl guys did, or the various other community-run projects done, taking Guild Ball forward. It seems to be going reasonably well so far. We've had a lot of engagement with people. It's mostly just start getting everything in order, but it's basically then looking at, we'll be doing a sort of community survey to try and get an idea. I know this is controversial, and I know I know Matt Hart and Rich Loxton are regular listeners, but getting feedback from the community about what they might want from the game is an idea we're going with.
Well, I'm going to assume that, like them, once you get feedback you don't like, you'll just quit.
Yeah. That's the plan. Yeah, I mean, I will anyway. I've actually already quit the steering group 4 times, so I haven't got my way. Every time I say we should have TAC 9 smoke, they just. Do
they not know anything about Guild Ball?
I'm just imagining the committee is nothing but peace trading. It's like, all right, we get TAC 9 smoke, but Valerian gets a character that gains momentum from standing behind the goal with the ball.
No, Valerian's only a playtester. He doesn't get as far as the steering committee. We're not letting him get his hands on that.
So what's going to happen next then with this thing? What's the next sort of roadmap for this?
So if anyone didn't know, we did publish the roadmap on the Longshanks blog. So Sam Bresden from Longshanks has been really heavily involved in it, along with sort of organising WTC. Other various actual competent people. So the idea is basically over the next few months we farm up with the community what they want us to do, what they don't want us to do. So do people want sort of organised? So we published a new organised play document. We're looking again at do we want to make erratas? Does the community want us to do that? Could we do events like community successor events to things like Union and Chains and Free Sentence Draft and that sort of stuff. So that's the principal idea. The big one, as we've said, is we've locked. We're definitely not touching rules of any sort for 6 months up to a year possibly, just because there's been an errata and all that sort of stuff. So we're just getting a handle on all of the different sort of facets of it, because obviously a big one is what can we legally do as a community project as well? What can we get agreements with SFG to do or not, in all sorts of different areas. So it's just tons of stuff trying to be worked through at the moment. There's a quite a clear timeline that's up on the Longshanks blog. But basically the end of this is the sort of storming phase, I guess, of the design of it. So at the end of the next month, we should have a really clear way forward with sort of work plans for all the committees that we've assembled, because we try to pull in as much expertise from the community as possible. So we've got people looking at sort of communications, at community engagement, organised play, rules, sort of every facet of the game basically, and where we can take it from there. And so we know sort of what we want to look at, but we want to make sure we sort of get clear timelines on and get all of that in place so that people can see what we're doing.
That's really cool. I really hope it good as well. Like, this much keen early on is I guess going to happen. Hopefully, can be sustained.
Yeah, that's the big one, isn't it? And hopefully we can actually, the big thing is we get back playing, is also stuff that's existential, so can we actually get back playing games again, and that sort of thing. But Don Westland, I don't think I'm dropping any of his hidden secrets. He's on the rules and sort of groups for it. He's joined. Nothing.
Not to nerf Thresher.
Yeah. Not to
All he'll do is put bees in every guild.
The shepherds will just gradually get replaced by bees. But he was saying he's more psyched for the community project than he was for actual Guild Ball when he was working
his job.
Yeah. So that's,
I mean, a job's a job in the end.
Yeah,
but all I'm going to say is that I definitely just think, beekeepers, bees make honey, honey used to make mead, like definite Brewers Minor Guild right there.
It's not a bad shout, actually.
I mean, there's a nice open goal that Steamforge left for a community project there, is that there's 4 guilds that haven't been created, so there's quite a logical sort of direction that it could go in. But we want to make sure we actually check with the community that do they want that, and are we the right people to do that?
So I know you mentioned this in the past when we've discussed some balance issues in the game and relations to Epic, and how you've been involved in that and have had like more of a control guild. Has there been any discussion yet amongst the committee of like where that power balance should sit? Because we all know like power level has just gone skyrocketing in season 4.
So the sort of bigger question that is first of all, because we actually had quite a long conversation with the former president of the NAF, with the Blood Bowl guys. So he gave us quite a lot of like good.
That's really interesting.
That's
He was great. He gave us a lot of like really good sort of options we can take, and obviously the option that the Blood Bowl guys took was they didn't change anything ever, and that's partly because the rules were the rules and the teams were the teams, and they basically just tiered them up and said, look, if you want to go to a tournament and play a goblin team, it's not going to be as good as playing dwarves.
It's not a bad shout, to be honest.
I think that's. It's definitely the policy that gets the least splintering, I would say.
Yeah, so what we're going to do, though, so this will be one of the questions we're going to put out to the community. So when you see that community survey, it's basically, do you want errata still? The difference, obviously, with Blood Bowl is it's not, as a game, it's never been as focused on balance as Guild Ball.
Nowhere near.
It's not as competitive a game. It's not designed to be a tournament game. So, and obviously, the other thing that happened, the other issue, obviously, is GW have a reputation for being very litigious, and if you start tinkering with their IP, they'll get quite upset about it. I mean, we didn't have that problem in Epic, but we had sort of agreements with some of the sort of senior guys there from when it was handed over. There was links there, so that's the big question we're going to put to the community. If we do look at doing erratas and doing balance again, then yeah, we would look at what do people actually want the power level of the game to be, of the teams to be, and having control guilds and that sort of thing. Yeah,
I'm really curious to see where that survey ends up, because in the chats and stuff, you do see people, like, I think I'm on the fewer changes is better camp, but then you see people who are like, almost saying what Matt said at the end about, like, the issues around competitive play and, like, ball killing being too good and all that stuff, and like, we need to massively change it. And I was like, oh lordy, are you gonna like cause some major differences in the community if like the Japan again being a good example for this, where they've basically changed it so goals are now you basically now need 4 goals to win or 5 takeouts.
Oh really?
Oh really?
Yeah, because they've changed it to 10 points and goals down to 3. So it just seems crazy to me that they were like, no, goals are too good.
But I think you see, I guess that's,
but they're changing everything around it too, so.
Yeah, they're doing their own sort of thing with it, I guess. And I guess where the community project is going is basically it's much more about ensuring the game continues to thrive, ensuring there is a game there for people to play at a tournament level and at a casual level, and trying to strike the sort of the balance with that. So we really. So at the moment, I guess, like, we're just asking a lot of questions, both of ourselves and of the community, and trying to come up with a sort of an answer to that. I'd be amazed if maybe the community will come back and tell us otherwise. But I'd be amazed if we end up with we're radically changing the entire game forever sort of thing. I think it's much more about ensuring it continues to exist and ensuring it remains balanced.
Yeah, I think it's kind of like the Guild Ball Community Project is debating the Blood Bowl versus Epic style, whereas the Japan project has gone full 9th Age.
That's
or like 9th Age is not even close to the same game age.
Yeah, nowadays, I went on the rulebook for 9th Age fairly recently, and it's basically now entirely its own thing, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a completely different game. That's like birthed from it. But it's definitely its own thing now, and that's definitely what Japan Guild Ball. And I am quite excited to see what they end up with.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah. I mean, the tricky thing, the risk is always that, like, if you have too many metas and countries go off and do their own thing, then you end up with the community splits, and you're not able to. Events like WTC or Worlds or whatever become sort of harder to do because everyone's playing their own version of the game.
Yeah, I mean, if it was any meta other than Japan doing it, I think it would be like much more of a
danger zone.
This may not be good for the community, but because it's Japan and like, realistically they're not gonna cross paths with any other meta anyway.
Yeah. No, I think it's cool that they're doing it, and all power to them.
So, shall we start talking about the game that we're here to talk about today? As was hinted at in the introduction.
Finnegan's Wake.
Finnegan's Wake.
It's a
war game.
What do we all think? Like the hot new RPG in town.
So yeah, Infinity. So it's kind of a weird time to talk about it in some ways because the new version isn't technically out yet and isn't going to be out for like another 2 or 3 weeks. But Infinity, let's start from the beginning. Infinity is a game by Corvus Belli. It is a sci-fi war game. Unlike 40k, it's very sort of clean, high-tech sci-fi rather than grimdark. And it's kind of a skirmish-based game with kind of maximum... Well, it was maximum for about 20-odd models. Also now maximum 15 models now. And it's very small scale, but quite detailed.
In depth, yeah, I'd say.
John, you've been playing for a long time, haven't you? This was the game you started on before Guild Ball, wasn't it? You've been playing Infinity for a very long time.
Yeah, I've been playing since mid of N2, which was version 2.
What sort of drew you to it in the first place, like, and how's it changed? Because my knowledge of Infinity is quite layman-esque. Like, my knowledge of Infinity is basically it looks beautiful and it's really complicated.
Originally, I was trying to get all my mates playing Necromunda again. But this was before the new version of Necromunda came out, and I was the only one who owned any of the original gangs, so I was trying to source gangs for my mates to play as proxies, seeing as they didn't have them. And I started looking around the internet, and I found Corvus Belli's site, and I was like, oh, these are cool models. And I started looking into it like more in depth, and in the end I was just like, why am I trying to play Necromunda when we could just try this game instead? And I kind of just got all my mates into it that way instead. So instead of playing Necromunda, which was my original intent, started playing N2 instead.
Just so you know, N2 refers to like second edition of the rules. For some reason, Infinity version is always referred to as N whatever. So N4 is coming out soon, the 4th edition.
Is that Spanish?
Yeah, I've still never figured that out. Why it's an N?
Oh yeah, it must be a Spanish word thing.
Yeah, Nuevo is new, so it could be that. But so like what are you fundamentally doing in it? It's a skirmish game. Is it just you run forward and you kill each other? Like what's the sort of does it have a set of objectives? Does it vary? How does that work?
Yeah, it's very heavily objective based. They have their tournament scene, their competitive scene, which won't last. Is
15 years so far.
Yeah, but
they haven't seen Guild Ball players yet.
Yeah, Guild Ball's coming for it. It's soon all games will be dead.
That's our goal. Dead games.
Exactly.
We haven't convinced the Langtons to come across from the London meta yet, have we? Though.
Well, I've got Francois kind of interested in
playing.
Yeah, he hasn't bought in yet, but he's keen to play. Valerian's not at all interested, but he's never played any game but Guild Ball.
That's true.
It's the only game he's ever picked up, really. I mean, he and Warhammer, like old school.
Right,
Warhammer.
stay on target. Come on, Mooney.
So where were we? Okay, so basically
the ITS.
The ITS is
Infinity's. Yeah, it's their Infinity tournament system.
With they got preset scenarios, don't they?
Yeah, they've got I think in the N3, there was. Trying to think, there was about 15, 20 different objectives, like scenarios you could play, and then there was like fan-made ones and all kinds of things. There was quite in depth, but yeah, it's basically it's all objective-based rather than just like I think there's only one objective out of the missions out of the set that has you actually going ahead and just trying to kill the other one. Most of it is kill a little bit. It's like Malifaux in that way. Kill a little bit, but complete the schemes.
And also some scenarios have deck cards as well, have sort of hidden objectives as well for bonus points.
Yeah, the classified objective deck, which is like mini objectives.
Terminal and that sort of thing, or kidnap this person.
Yeah, scan this person or have them scanned with like a forward observer, or as you said, like heal this guy, or don't heal this guy, kill him instead.
And is it you go, I go? Is it sort of, classic Warhammer where I do my whole turn and you do your whole turn? Like, how does that, how interactive is it?
So, the thing that makes Infinity supposedly unique amongst all other war games is that it's kind of simultaneous play. So one player is the active player, and one is the reactive player. And so the active player takes all his orders, which is how you play the game. The units generate orders, and that's how you move the pieces around, the models. And whilst you're moving, the other player has a chance to react to any of your actions. It's kind of like always having counter-attack up, always having momentum to do counter-attack.
Yeah, I think when we played, I sort of ended up saying it's like everything's always on Overwatch.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
Yeah.
Because you had to bring an epic reference into it.
You get Overwatch in 40k, or you did in second edition when I last played.
It's true, yeah. And basically, yeah, everything's on Overwatch. So as long as you've got line of sight, or you're within a model's zone of control, which is the area that surrounds them, you can always react to you can always react to what a person's doing.
Cool. And why have you stuck with it, John? Because obviously there's often games get picked up, anyone, lots of us all, I am sure everyone in this chat has picked up models for a game because they looked really nice, or the game looked cool, and then you're like, and you're like, yeah, I've bought some models I've never played, or I played it twice and didn't play anymore.
I think that's what started it. It was the models, because I was looking for Necromunda, as I said. But when I saw the active and reactive system, or the ARO system as it's known as, the automatic the automated reaction order? Automatic reaction order? Something like that.
Automated reaction order? I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's something like that. Something reaction order.
Attractive rectum order.
I like
That's
the fact
the
that...
one.
That's definitely it.
That's it, yeah. Active rectum order.
Well, coming from, because before Infinity, I was a 40k player, and a fantasy player. And, had one player taking all their turn and doing all their stuff and then passing on to the other one. There's a large portion of the game where one of you is just sitting and watching the other one have fun. And what I liked about Infinity was the fact that you're both playing at the same time. And so I thought that was very cool. And that's kind of one of the things that's kept me going with it, because a lot of my friends that I play with, they're real sticklers for we have to do stuff together. I want to be playing as well. And they get very bored if they're not doing stuff. So it was good to have a game that we could both play at the same time.
And that is Connor's classic complaint. It's not being included.
It's kind of weird because when I saw the rules to it, I thought it was going to be a really hard game to play, because the way it works is that effectively, if your model, say if your dude moves to shoot someone, and two of the guys can see him, they'll shoot back.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, that's going to get really fiddly, because you kind of move and you kind of... Line of sight in games, I've never been a big fan of true line of sight, because it's fiddly, and this game's full of it. Then again, because every model has a preset silhouette sort of shape, you kind of can proxy out your positioning. And the game quite a lot of the game is about saying... how in Guild Ball you sort of proxy out and go, I want to do this goal run, is that fine? And you sort of do it, you let all your widgets, and then you agree on it, then you roll your dice. It's kind of like that, where you go, okay, I want to go here, but I want to go here, so this guy can't see me, is that okay? And you kind of negotiate it. So a lot of
Infinity is people doing that. Yeah, it's a lot of it's people agreeing on stuff okay, so I'm meaning to be in cover, or you move out, and you're like, your model's a little out there. Were you meaning to be in full cover? And you're like, oh yeah, I was meaning to be full cover and not being able to be seen. Okay, then, well, let's just move it back. Or were you able? Did you want to be out? And you're like, yeah, I want to be able to see you. And they're like, okay, then so we'll go with that instead.
And as far as I'm aware, even at tournament play, that's what happens. It's all about sort of proxying out and doing it by intent. So basically, it's not really gotcha as such. Well, there are gotchas in the game, but not in terms of the core mechanic. In terms of I thought I couldn't see him. That sort of stuff. That doesn't really happen.
No, it can be quite gentlemanly.
Yeah, I've definitely seen some heat. That was actually one of the things that turned me off in N3 back in when I was, I think, playing Malifaux still at the time, and I saw two Infinity players playing on this beautiful models and just yelling at each other over whether this person could see this other person from this perch they'd gone into. Ouch. And I was just oh boy. And it's definitely, even in the games I've played, one in every you'll get into a disagreement about it. And usually, it'll be fine, but usually it will be one of those oh well, crap. But it's true line of sight's never my favorite. But it does work better in this game also because ranges are so long that you can almost always assume if you can be seen, you can be shot, which I think helps a lot. And that was one of the weird other parts of the game is that there's only partial pre-measuring. So you're allowed to pre-measure movement, but you're not allowed to pre-measure like attack ranges. And I thought I would hate that before I started playing. Like I was really, because I hated it in old 40k and fantasy. I never liked pre-measuring.
See, that attracts me because it's a core skill that, like one of my core, I was saying this before. I realized all my core board game skills don't get used in Guild Ball. Like I'm good at list building. I'm good at measuring without, like, I'm good at eyeballing distance, and so that quite attracted me. Is like, oh, you don't get to pre-measure. Oh, I'm up for that.
See, I'm terrible at it, and I never liked it. But the nice thing about Infinity is it matters a lot less, because you're never going to have a situation, well, almost never going to have a situation where you're like, oh, I'm going to do this. Oh, crap, now it's impossible. It might be less likely, but it's still possible. So, like, if you misjudge something, usually all it's going to be is like a -3, like a -3 dice swing.
So I'm going to make a super niche reference here. Is that the sort of weapons ranges in it with it feel like if anyone ever played Manowar, you had like three zones that your cannons could fire in, that they were better at certain distances.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's definitely all about optimal range.
Yeah, so you can always, as you say, you can almost always like get a shot off even if you mismeasure it. It's just this like, it's just the distance thing matters more. And I'm definitely at the stage, I've played like 3 knockabout games with you, John, haven't I? Like where it's like, I'm at the stage where it's like, I'll throw models on the table and I'll throw them around, and that's really fun. Like that's almost my favorite stage of playing any games where you don't have a clue what you're doing.
Oh yeah.
And
there's
but I could imagine if you got to like a high level, like a really high tournament level, you would actually be looking to be like, I can eyeball, this distance down to 3 inches because that's the
because you want to shoot that. You want to shoot them at a range band that's good for you, but bad for them.
Yeah, and you want to be able to eyeball that.
Yeah. The nice thing though is it's very rare that it's very rare that you'll be that far off because the range bands are quite large.
Yeah, they're quite big.
It's usually like 8 to 16, 16 to 24, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So, like, you've got a long... It's not like one of those... Like, if you were trying to eyeball, like, threat ranges in Guild Ball, where you're like, oh, yeah, I think I'm in 10 inches. Oh, I'm in 9 inches. I lose the game.
Yeah.
Like... Yeah, so that's kind of what I was worried about, because Malifaux is similar-ish. No, it's not as bad as Guild Ball for that, but it's similar where, like, if you misjudge a threat range, you can get obliterated. And Infinity doesn't feel that way in the same way, because what matters more than range is just being in cover. And they fixed the cover rules with Code 1, because I really disliked N3 cover rules, and that was another reason I didn't want to play.
Let's talk about Code 1 first of all before we start like saying how things have changed between editions, because Code 1, that's the thing that seems to have got quite a lot of people on the London.
That's what's wrote Connor in.
Yeah, so I basically never played N3.
So
whatsoever.
Code 1 basically is their kind of new. Well, it's not new now. It came out in like
it's the kickoff box for
essentially. But that game's dead now, so
it's a starter box because that they're not feasible.
No, they're not.
But
So Code 1 is it's Infinity. What they've done is for Code 1 is they have effectively trimmed some of the stats down, so they have less on the cards, and also they're doing it so if you want to buy into a faction, you can buy sort of certain boxes to sort of as blocks to your army.
Yeah.
There'll be a standard troop box, and then like a bonus box with some support units in, a bonus box with some robots in, and so on. So very modular sort of approach to building it. And there's currently 4 armies that are Code 1. There's going to be more next year.
Yeah, they're going to release 2 every year. That's what they've said. 2 additions to Code 1 every year.
Yeah, so basically it's kind of a step up, a step up from the old boxes, but it's basically simpler Infinity, but not way simpler as a way to get into it.
No, it's not. It's not ridiculously simple, but it's supposed to be like a gradual. Like it's supposed to help people who want to either play a shorter game of Infinity or dip their toe in and get ready for N4.
And the models in the
proper
box,
version.
the models you get for the starter box,
so
you get enough
good.
models to actually have a decent game.
Oh yeah, it's totally. Yeah, they've given you more than enough models to I think get up to 3/4 of the points for a full game or something like that.
And I think that was one of the big thing they did with the Operation Caldstrom box, which is the Code 1 starter box, is amazing models in there. The Knight of Justice is one of my favorite Infinity models, and probably the model that got me into the game.
Sword.
Oh,
Is that the guy on the
so
bike,
cool.
or is that different?
No, this is the female paladin type with flowing
Swinging
cape
the
and giant sword,
Oh, yeah.
even though it's mostly a gunfighter. Which is actually a trope in Infinity, per model with giant sword, but actually uses gun 95% of time.
Because guns are lethal and have long ranges.
Yeah, it is funny they always pose with the swords though, but it's I think the big thing with Code 1 is how good that starter box is, but then also as you said, the expansion process is quite good. But I actually really like there's been a lot of discussion of if they didn't simplify or if they simplified it too much or whatnot, and I think they kind of nailed it, because to me playing Code 1 doesn't feel like any more complex or simple than playing Guild Ball. It's kind of in that ballpark to me. There are still a lot of rules and a lot of profiles, but by keeping it to 4 factions, they kind of really reduce what you need to know about your opponents, which is actually what's often the most difficult thing when learning a new game. Isn't learning how the rules or how your stuff works. It's how often you just get gotcha'd by stuff that you have no clue what it does.
Yeah,
it's true.
And the other things that kind of got me into the game after not being to it prior and always kind of saying I have no interest in Infinity was they don't have some of the more complicated combos in Code 1, which makes it easier to learn the core rules. And they limited the model count, because I never really liked how big some games of Infinity could get in terms of model spam, because orders, you basically get influence based on the amount you have. So the more models, the more actions you get to take, typically. And in Code 1, they just set a 10 limit that kind of helps with that. And then also, Andrew, you were asking about the cover change. So it used to be that you needed 33% of your model in cover, covered by something, to count as being in cover.
That seems clean. I think you could get that.
Yeah, that
cleanly,
seems
right?
like no arguments whatsoever will come out of that.
Yeah.
And now, yes, this is less realistic, but I don't care, because sometimes having a game that functions is more important.
It really is.
If you are in base contact with cover and it interferes with any line of sight from the thing shooting you, you get cover. It's very simple.
So basically, once again, just to draw this back to the topic of the true game that we all love, Infinity took Epic's cover rules.
Oh God! It is at the moment. There is a little bit of controversy over it.
But most games have similar to that cover rule. Infinity's previous cover rules were just insane.
Yeah. Was it Perkins was saying on Twitter about his the issues of true line of sight being the history of true line of sight in war games and how it got because it's such an important thing in the real world, and how people kept trying to transfer it in a realistic manner rather than just going. And actually, the move that almost all games that use it well have made is to use it in an abstract manner.
Yeah. I still find the hardest part of Infinity for me isn't the rules or the tactics. It's can I see this person from this angle? I'm not sure if my eyes are actually functioning.
The whole Pie family.
You're just I don't understand if how angles work.
That's why you have a laser pen.
I wanted to play a game, and I couldn't bother to get out of my chair, so I was sitting down, and I didn't see a model hiding behind a building. I sit in my chair, it's fine, move models around, because a model can shoot you. What? I've got to stand up. Oh, no. That was the worst thing.
And also, if you stand up, Andrew, you've got a pretty good view of the battlefield. If Connor stands up, he's just you sitting down. So you've actually...
Exactly, I'm at a handicap.
Yeah, you've actually forfeited a massive advantage by choosing to sit in a chair, because you can get the proper drone view of the battle. You're what's it called? What's the thing that in Transformers, the one that's not Starscream, the one that's the space station?
Oh God,
space station.
It's one that there's a satellite or something, isn't there?
I really hope we're making some nerd twinge right now.
I mean, this podcast is basically just that's what it does.
Is it bad that all I thought was Thunderbird 5?
No, I think it's good. I think it's good.
Is it like it starts with an O?
Obelix? Is it Obelix?
We're doing well here.
We're doing so well. Be on track then. We're doing so
Is it Obelix the Transformer? I mean, we've got a whole 30 minutes actually on topic, so I think.
I tried getting into N3 a couple of times, and last year I was playing a bit with a mate, and it got distracted from playing it. But the problem with N3 was that the starter boxes you got were very nice, but they cut the rules down too much, and the N3 and N2 presumably systems were. The fact was that the rules were simple enough, but every stat block had lots of skills, and you had to look the skills up in the rulebook.
Yeah.
And some of the skills said this character has these skills, and so you had skills within skills, and some skill. So you might have a character who had, like, say 6 skills, and they all didn't mean anything themselves on the stat block. You had to go into the rulebook and find them, and then some of them actually meant they had other skills, and it got pretty silly. And I think after you got used to playing it, it was fine, but then it very rapidly got very hard for new players, and N4 seems to have done a good job with that, because now they have skills that just tell you what they do on the
they de-nested everything, as it's the term for it is, because all the rules were nested before, and they've de-nested them now. They put them all on the card, so they're all plain as day there. You can't mistake anything. You won't ever have to go looking for them again. They're all right there.
Yeah, like simple things like, for example, in the past, a character may have a skill that gave them bonus to dodge, and it used to be a level 1, 2, or 3 skill. And you had to look at that level of the skill, and that skill gave you a bonus. But now that bonus is just given as inches on the character block.
Yeah, they just say dodge plus 1 inch, or dodge
or
plus
a flat
2
bonus
inches.
a flat bonus to a stat, or a flat bonus to damage, and it tells you what it is. So there are skills that are still look up in the book, but a lot of the things they do, you can just go, oh, it does that. And that is a huge difference.
I think one of the worst offenders was there was a table, or there is a table. It's martial arts table for close combat characters, and it has 5 levels. But the stipulation in N3 was if you have martial arts level 1, you have courage.
And
so then
stealth.
you had to look up courage, and it's like, oh, well, now you've got courage, you've got stealth, and it's like, what?
It's like those sort of flow charts you get for the film Primer.
Yeah.
Explaining what's happened in Primer. Really, that's your
Yeah.
martial arts thing.
It was like circular rules lookups.
It's a great way to design a rule set that makes it new player friendly.
Yeah.
You need a
it's
mind
quite
map
daunting at
to
this
play.
So, like, why should people play this? Like, what's good? You know, because I think I'm going to go out on a limb, and obviously everyone should follow the Guild Ball community projects and continue playing Guild Ball. But if people are looking for a new game, like, why should they be playing Infinity?
Well, first of all, it's got a new starter set, which massively helps people get into the game.
No, it doesn't, John.
It does. It does. It's just some other companies can't do it. No, the
Starter sets are just the first step on the way to competitive play,
Yeah, exactly.
which will doom the game.
Exactly. Like, you look at it, like, that's why chess is dead. It's
Yeah.
you know, it's got a cheap starter box, and it's really competitive, and that's
I
one.
never thought of it.
Yeah,
And that's why it's not as popular as Games Workshop games.
Jesus.
No, like, chess is not as popular as Blood Bowl. That's what we learned from Facebook.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that cutting edge comment. Yeah, that was fantastic.
Yeah, listeners, if you want a good time, look up some of the comments about that have been made about Games Workshop ruining the new version of Blood Bowl, which includes Games Workshop Blood Bowl is more popular than chess, being one of the statements that some.
I still can't believe that, like, a thing we read. Oh, that was fun, though. There is something joyful about watching a game get destroyed just to see how angry everyone gets.
pretty angry, it sounds like.
Yeah. But,
People don't like it when you mess with their toys.
yeah, I think, like, the big wins for Infinity for me are how nice the game looks. The models
Yes.
are great. I love high quality metal models. I wish Guild Ball had never moved off metal. They did great sculpts at affordable prices. And resin was a disaster. They eventually fixed it, but just in time for the game to die. And the other thing is, like, the terrain in Infinity is really cool. The list building is really interesting. The Especially like in Code 1, it's fairly minimal because there's not as much stuff going on, and the point costs are a lot more small because it's on a 30-point scale instead of a 300-point scale.
They've simplified everything quite a lot.
Yeah,
now.
which is great, but there's still so much interesting list building going on. There's a lot of counterplay, but I honestly think the main thing, basically, if you like the ARO system and how that makes an interactive game, you will like Infinity. And if you don't, you probably won't.
Yeah, it's
to
not
me,
a game where
it's
you
the
sit down
defining
and they-
part of the game.
It's not like 40k where you sit down and then half an hour passes and half the things are dead. You know,
Yeah.
you get to interact with your opponent probably in the first activation or two.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, and the key is fun. And like honestly, the thing we've talked about when I've been playing games with locals, and the thing as someone who's completely new to the game, there's games that I've won or lost because one person deployed too many models that were able to be seen, and then I've won games where the opponents deployed not enough models. So like that balance of like how much fire support do you set up when you're going second versus how much do you hide to keep your models safe while going second. Because being able to go prone in this game means you can go in spots where normally you wouldn't be safe and just hide. So
Yeah.
you can go like on top of a building and just go prone so you're hidden from most things. Especially if there's a little lip on the building, like a 1 meter wall type thing.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, it feels like a game where deployment and
Oh,
list
you didn't
building
get-
really
you wait
matters,
separately.
which is, these are both things that it's nice to come to after Guild Ball, because like list building is kind of non-existent in Guild Ball, and deployment kind of matters, but it's like basically it matters in, but it's but not to the same extent as it does in a lot of war games. The Guild Ball has like sort of 3 or 4 orthodox deployments that you tend to use.
Yeah,
and then,
I would say Guild Ball's more like Blood Bowl, where like deployment you get destroyed. But you should know how to do a base. Whereas, yeah, Infinity in particular, even compared to like other games I've played, because everything starts turn 1, and this is something we haven't mentioned yet. It's a 3-turn game.
Oh yeah.
That's a
by
big
then everyone's
difference
dead.
from like 5 turns in Malifaux, or like God knows how many turns Guild Ball can be. But most games I've played have been around 5 turns, I think. So playing a 3-turn game where like there is no turn of getting into position in the same way, is really interesting, especially with the long threat range in the game. Meaning like you're basically can get shot from the first moment of the game if you like, not even if you are careful. Like there will usually be interaction of some kind within the first couple minutes of the game, and it's a really positive part of it.
Yeah, it seems like what you're often doing in the early ones is risking, like, who can I take out the other opponent's models that can see me or sort of get out of it, get them down. Who's the most likely to do that, and who can I lose if it goes
It's like
wrong?
a puzzle because basically, like,
Yeah.
there's a guy here, and this guy's covering this sort of. Think of it as a game of lots of Cohens facing each other. I want to get that one. That one there has basically got a view upon my battlefield, so I want to take him out first. And once his gun gone, I unlock that flank, and so a lot of it's about sort of unlocking how to do a certain objective.
Yeah, and the fact that you can't pre-measure these things where, like, someone sits there being like, all right, where's the exact perfect position I can go to be in the ideal spot to do this? Because you can't do that because you can't measure that stuff.
I noticed that, what's his name? Is it Vol SC, the New Zealand guy who used to do loads of Warhammer videos, didn't he? He does quite a lot of like YouTube videos of like how to play and things like that as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
I've watched those.
Sorry, John, you were saying something?
no, I was just saying it is a game that rewards kind of taking the initiative and running with it. I mean, I remember giving Francois and Connor a demo of it on Tabletop Simulator in the height of a lockdown, and the first 2 turns, Connor and Francois did the typical London get Guild Ball meta thing and just stood back from each other. And I was like, look,
hiding behind buildings. There were no attacks in the first 2 turns.
And I was like,
In
I've
a
never seen
3-turn
game do this. I've never seen no one attack in the first 6 turns of a game. It's like someone's got to commit, and they were both like, "Or do we?" And I was like, "Yes, what? Who's gonna?"
Yes. So, the interesting part about that is that was basically because neither of us knew the game and didn't want to commit first. But Infinity's different because, yes, while you get shot in your opponent's turn, generally you're outnumbering them, because when you shoot a 3-shot gun in your turn, you get to roll 3 dice. When you shoot like a 3-shot gun in your opponent's turn, you only get to roll 1 dice. So by being the aggressor, you're more statistically likely to win. So what we should have done was a bit more on that, and then basically I got bored and did throw someone in. And whereas in Guild Ball, that probably would have lost me the game and won it for manslaughter. In this game, I won the game because I actually did something and had the better odds. And so it was really interesting that it does reward aggressive play in a way that I was worried it wouldn't when I was first playing. But I also like how the range bands creates this like interesting thing of your best guns are better at long range. So if people can close with you, they can take you out. And like between having troops that like deep strike in or walk on from the board edge or start at the halfway point, like hunting down your opponent's fire bases is like one of the key parts of the game that in the early games we were all terrible at, and it became like a sniper shoot sniper, sniper shoot sniper. Which sniper will win this roll off? Whoever does is probably going to win the game. But,
yeah,
but the more you like learn how to actually close and like play models that can do that without just like running in the open screaming, the like more the game becomes quite interesting. And I was not very keen on playing N4 because I was too worried it was going to be quite similar to N3. But a lot of the changes they've made, some of which have been quite unpopular with veteran players, I've been a huge fan of, and it's made me much more excited to play N4 than I was before. Namely the model limit,
the tactical window, as it's called.
Yeah.
The model limit seems like limiting the amount of because obviously activations are orders, as you say, like limiting that just seems like an absolute no-brainer.
Some context, basically, the old game N3, but before that, the way it works is every model you have in your army, virtually everyone have in your army, contributes an order to a pool of orders, and that pool of orders can get given to anyone in your army. So in theory, you could have a 20 order army, that's 20 cheap dudes, and 1 expensive dude, and then that dude could, in your turn, do 20 things. Now, that probably wouldn't be a way to win, but you could do it. But they're limited now to maximum 15, so you can't spam cheap units anymore.
Yeah, and honestly, and this was a big problem I had with the late stage of 2nd edition Malifaux, which was my main competitive game before Guild Ball, is by the end it became just the game just became about activation control, and like summoning it was basically a game of summoners versus alpha strikers, and all the interesting stuff in the middle, unless it was incredibly broken, just wasn't worth playing.
Well, activation advantage is such a huge, like, either be it through the number of orders, like an Infinity Order, like it's such a huge balancing dynamic for a war game, and like, so, you know, with Guild Ball, because everyone essentially has 6 activations, having one more than 6 is incredibly powerful, and so, and there are games, and so the other comparison I'll make is like for Epic, the way it's balanced is you do have armies that have, like, having less activation is a big deal, but what you have is lists and armies that are tankier than others. So like a Space Marine army will have a lot of activations versus, say, an Imperial Guard army, but the Imperial Guard ones will be more resilient. So the Space Marines start with more activations, but usually by turn 3 have less. And so it feels like Infinity's going into that. You know, if you can have basically one more activation someone in a game with a few activations, or lots more activations like you could in, say, N2, that is a serious balance issue, and the correction they seem to have made is more in the, like, there will be a difference in activation counts, but it will be balanced out by model quality.
Yeah, and I do think, like, there is an argument that was something that did exist in N3, but, like, it can be balanced and still not fun, I think, is the key. Kind of like, you know, there's things in every game that, like, get changed just because they suck to play against. It doesn't matter if they're, like, too good. It matters if people hate playing the game because it pisses them off. And when you, like, if you have, like, a drop troop and you're like, oh, there's literally nowhere on the board I can put this thing where it doesn't get shot by 3 models at once.
Yeah.
It's kind of a crappy way to play the game. And so what ended up happening is a lot of the more interesting, cool models just weren't actually very good. And alongside buffing a lot of those models, and cover becoming better for bigger models, by reducing the order count, it becomes a lot easier to play, like, lower orders. So, like, before, like, most people, I think, will run 15 orders now, but like, it's much easier to run, like, a 9-order list now because you know you'll only be down 6 orders, whereas, like, before you could have been down, like, 20 orders.
Well, Infinity has a lot of really cool-looking massive robots, and before...
yes, the tags.
And they're called tags, and before, basically, I think they weren't particularly viable.
No one really ever used them.
Now orders are capped out, suddenly you go, actually, I could be 3 orders down, rather than 20 orders down, take a massive Death Scorpion robot. I'll do that.
Yes.
I can't wait to take the giant, like a wolf-headed Wolverine clawed guy. That guy rules.
What the heck get on that front, John? So I can never assemble.
They have the Death Scorpion that Andrew mentioned. It's called the Maghariba Guard, or Maggie for short.
It's the biggest model in the game.
It's amazing.
Yes,
buy one of those and graft like Margaret Thatcher's face onto it. Then.
If you want to spend 50 quid on a model to graft Margaret Thatcher's face onto it,
model you can put in a sock and kill someone with.
It's an attitude like that, Steve, that got the Scottish faction banned from Infinity. They're not actually banned, just discontinued.
Are they being discontinued?
Well, what they often do is they have effectively like a bunch of main factions, but a lot of factions are broken into smaller bits. And so what they've done is, with the Caledonian faction, they've kind of discontinued them, but they often bring them back in other ways, like they bring them back by doing resculpts and things. When the sculpts are old, they want to try them to prevent SKU creep in shops. And then
they want to try
to stop,
like,
stuff.
They want to stop like what happened at Darksphere years ago, our local, which is where it used to have a giant wall just full of blisters, and it was the Darksphere couldn't find it viable to keep like putting all those blisters up. They wanted it smaller, and that was a complaint that Corvus Belli got a lot from shops, that they didn't want to have just an entire wall just for one product when they could be selling multiple things.
Just one more point on the Scottish contingent of Infinity. William Wallace in space.
What was
I really
that
want that.
What's that accent, Connor?
That's just my normal accent.
Just checking.
I like the fact you didn't attempt.
I thought for a minute Bryce had come back on.
But William Wallace is flying into space with the Russian cosmonauts now, and that's just freaking hilarious.
And the Space Bear.
And the Space Bear.
He's got to take freedom to space. That's what he's got to do.
Seems only right and fair.
But they do discontinue armies, and they get rid of like SKUs. But what they always say is that even though an army's being discontinued, they do keep the rules in the game, so you can still play that particular faction of your army if you so choose. The rules will still be there. It's still tournament legal. It's just you won't be able to buy those models at a certain point because they'll go out of production. So if you have them and you love that army, they're not saying don't play it. They're saying keep playing it. Go for it. It's just, make sure you buy all the stuff before it goes out.
I'm curious how much balancing they're going to do of those armies. But I think a lot of the discontinued ones, they said, are going to get N4 rules, but not on release. It's going to be later.
No, it's December. I think it's December that they said for fans of the TOA, like Alex, for example.
Most armies,
suck it, TOA.
So an army that discontinue is basically a fraction of a main army. Makes sense?
Yeah, a sectoral, as they call them.
Yeah, so
except TOA. Suck it, TOA.
Most armies aren't, so it might be that army can be repurposed anyway.
Yeah, I mean that's the thought that a lot of people. I mean the new one of the new sectorals that's coming out for one of the factions, Ariadna, is called the Cosmoflot, which is I think that's Russian for space fleet or space force or something.
It's a space fleet.
And it's combining, now that they've decided to discontinue one of the factions, one of the sub-factions of Ariadna, which is the Caledonians, the Scots, they're repurposing several of those models to put into that. And also one of the ones they discontinued before, the French, which were called the Merovingians, they're also being repurposed into this into this particular force. And that's how they kind of do things in Infinity. They discontinue a sectoral, one of the sub-factions, but they replace it with a new sectoral to go into that faction, and then they kind of just like cycle them as they go.
Yeah, makes sense.
But
how many factions are there?
Main
Oh.
factions, main armies, there are
9?
around that.
So there's
I'm counting now.
Panoceania, Eugene, Ariadna, Nomads, Hack Islam, Combined Army,
O12.
the O12, yeah, that's the latest one that's just come out. The TOA and the NA2, which are non-aligned armies.
There's 10.
Hey, I got
There's
it
10.
right. 9. What's
There's
that?
10.
10? I
1,
thought
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Miss out Nomads.
Oh.
Nomads, I did say Nomads.
There's 10 here, I'm counting them. 1, Pano, Eugene, Ariadna,
This is
Hack
great
Islam,
content.
Nomads,
This is
Command Army,
Great content. Let me say, this is-
Toha, NA2, O12, 10.
So should we just list them all again? I think it's Pano.
One more
Eugene,
time.
O12, Sausage
We're trying to
Factory.
teach you, Steve. Repetition is the key to teaching.
That's how, that according to
You'll one day you'll get it,
yeah,
Steve.
according
One
to
day you'll
Chinese
stop it.
schools
You'll
and
actually play an arm rather than
But
doing
in terms of the sort of the theme lists, the sort of sub lists, which they called sectorals, which kind of like a list with less choice but more things they can do. Does that make sense?
Yeah, they've got.
There's lots of those.
Oh God, yeah. I mean, I think one of the factions. I think Panoceania has 5. I think they're the one with the most.
So what's the difference? What does a sectoral
So
do, John?
basically, they get access to the ability to kind of use sort of combat squads effectively.
Yeah,
They can kind
Fire
of share,
teams, as they're called.
share order pools. So rather than having one order activating one dude, you can activate 4 dudes.
They're more efficient and they get bonuses for being in fire teams, but they pay for it by having fewer options. So some of the sectorials are really good because their fire teams are kind of broken, but some are not as good because they miss too many of the faction's good models. Whereas, like, if you play the main faction, you don't get any of that cool jank, but you get to basically make combinations that don't work in every other, in like all the sectorials.
yeah.
Makes sense.
There's often discussion between whether or not you play the vanilla version of the faction, which gives you access to everything but in small amounts, or you play a sectoral, which gives you a very focused, limited amount of the army, but you get access to the fire teams and the jank and a lot of the different things in that. And it's often quite a big topic of which one's better, playing vanilla or playing a sectoral.
But that's nice how it's even a conversation which one's better rather than being an outright obvious answer.
Yeah,
and it's really interesting because they've actually put the fire team rules, which are basically like the big thing about the sectorials, as their own PDF. They are not part of the printed N4 rules, just because with all the changes that have gone on in the edition, they're not sure if sectorals or vanilla is going to be too powerful or too weak. So they've separated those off into their own rule set so they can errata them without having to errata the main rule book, which people will have spent a bunch of money buying a hard copy of potentially.
yes,
Which I thought was a really good idea. And it's like a balance you can use without touching specific models.
That makes sense. Is there anything more we should really be covering on Infinity? What do we think?
I think we're probably done. I think one thing that got me into looking at the game is the fact it's got a lot of objectives, a lot of different missions, a lot of variety per game.
the factions all have their unique flavour.
Some of them are quite narrative. The missions are like go here.
Yeah.
It feels a bit like XCOM-y sort of missions in that.
It just looks so good. That's my
beautiful
main-
one.
One thing I really liked about the missions too is I kept trying to think of like basing missions off sci-fi films I'd seen, and then I was thinking how to do the rules, and then realized Corvus Belli's already done it. So
pretty much.
like they've got like one that's like a zone, and basically you have to go into the zone to score points, but it's like toxic from alien waste or something, and so you have to take like a BTS, like a biotechnical shield save, or just die from the environment.
Yeah, that's
So
the
not
one.
a
I was really when you said there's a zone and you have to go into it and it's kind of dangerous. I was saying, I really hope you guys you have to take a special highway to the danger zone.
Oh, Lord. I didn't even
I was
think
really
about that.
hoping you were going into that. Like you were like,
No.
and it turns out your favorite science fiction film is Top Gun. Like, that's what I was really hoping.
That
was
would,
gonna be, like,
yeah.
I've got a lot more respect.
The danger zone.
You'd spent the
There you
whole
go.
episode building up to that joke. I think I'd have.
I don't think I'm prepared enough, sadly.
And on that note,
Paint your hack.
ladies and gentlemen,
Yeah,
assemble your hunters, Connor.
No.
Too late. Killed
Game's
it.
dead.
The before we descend into just in jokes, I think even more so, I think we should say thank you to Connor Rooney and thank you to John Clemens for coming on to tell us all about Infinity.
Excuse me. Oh, no, I can end the podcast.
Yeah, I know. I'm not ending it. I'm just saying thank you to them, just because you're like.
You can assert me.
We've been doing it for a while.
Thank you, Connor. Thank you, John.
You're welcome. You're welcome, Andrew.
Thank them with their full names. They
No.
need to come on the podcast. The least you can do is address them by their full names.
Thank you,
I hope
Mr.
one day
John.
we actually all get to play an Infinity event together.
Ooh.
But
Yeah.
one day we might actually just get to play any game together.
Just an event, please.
You can't play board games because that's more than 6 people, but you can play basketball where you all handle the same object that you sweat on. These are the rules.
Yeah.
So we'll meet up for a game of basketball, shirts for skins, knock into each other a bunch, and then I'll go have a drink at the pub.
Yeah.
Take that, coronavirus.
I'm just thinking of Top Gun again now. Oh,
Oh, okay, yeah. So the next episode of Singled Out will be a live report from our beach volleyball tournament that we play in.
Can we?
the sexy episodes at last?
We got to do
Finally, it's get sexier. This is where you're glad you recruited me over Jason, Andrew, because at least I'm 6'2".
Does anyone?
Beach volleyball.
Oh, he would be terrible at beach volleyball. Does anyone remember the Strictly the Worst episode where they just reviewed Wild Wild West?
What, really?
Yeah, there's an
No.
episode where they just review Wild Wild West because Pat had never seen it.
That's good
there's
content.
content running
It's
out. or
honestly
something.
their best episode.
But there's quite a lot you can say about Wild Wild West as well.
But we should do a Top Gun episode.
Can I sing the theme
one.
song?
Top Gun 2.
No, I think if we talk about one 90s action movie on this podcast as a whole episode, I think we should just talk about Point Break.
That's a good
I
one.
don't think I've seen it.
Really?
To be fair, I don't think I've seen the whole thing.
Maybe saw as a kid. I don't remember anything about it.
Yeah, I might have seen it as a kid too. But...
Apparently, Keanu Reeves said in an interview recently that was his most favourite. That's his most favourite film that he's ever done.
That's
All the
odd.
things he's done.
Yes.
Yeah, he said that it's his
He's done a
favourite
lot
film.
of films.
But I mean, Point Break is nearly perfect. Like it's.
It is great.
I thought
Brody.
words. I'm struggling. Do you even know what it's about, Andrew or Con?
No.
I know the story.
It's a bunch of bank robbers who are the
Surfers.
ex-presidents who are also surfers, and
Yeah.
it includes Gary Busey, like in one of the all-time great roles, having
It
Gary Busey has
fascinating.
multiple. Listen, you snot-nosed piece of insert swear word. I was picking shrapnel out of my hiding case on while you were in your pants and calling for your mama. Like it's like everything about
It's
it.
basically like a better Fast and Furious, but with
Fast and Furious
surfboards
rips it
instead
off.
of cars.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly the premise. It's so perfect, and all of them are so beautiful. Like Keanu Reeves, is so good, Patrick Swayze, Laurie Petty's so attractive. Like it's the perfect.
Oh, I thought
film.
we were talking about the really good remake.
Oh yeah. I can't believe you've never seen Point Break. Andrew.
Well,
Right,
that
okay.
should be a task, shouldn't it?
So when we go to that tournament we were going to go to that isn't happening now, we'll have to. I don't know. I can't imagine the Glory Goals tournament that's happening now. We've got this 6-person thing.
Well,
but,
all you need to do is go
not.
to a pub and watch this film on someone's phone.
so sometime soon, Andrew, we will have to get that much delayed game of Epic in where we're also watching the film Point Break.
Yeah, we have to do that.
Um,
That'd be good. That'd be good stuff.
Well, at least I know what the intro music to this episode will be now, because it has to be whatever the theme tune to Point Break is.
I have no idea what it is.
I'll Google it when we're done. So I'll do that for you. It's a
Okay.
good co-host.
Right, on that bombshell, I think we'll say good night. Good night, everyone. Thank you for listening.
Good night.
Good night.